Hey guys, so this week's video I'm using the Soligor 135mm f4 lens. It's a fully manual lens. I'm just adjusting the aperture a bit here and there. And I'm up in the Port Hills, which is near Christchurch. The hills are sort of above the city. The city is behind me in this shot, and I'm looking out onto the bay here and some really nice still water. And it's just a good location in general for getting some really cool shots. You can see lots of interest in the scenery and some good leading lines here and there, and the water is usually quite still, especially early on in the morning, so you get some really cool shots. But because I'm using the long lens, so it's 135 and quite zoomed in, so there's a harbour town just in the distance there. You can sort of see the harbour slightly just towards the horizon, and I'm just trying to zoom in. I am zoomed in quite close with the long lens, and I'm trying to get a bit of a leading line where the hills meet the ocean, and it brings a line towards the harbour itself, and you can see some of the cranes and things. And I'm just zooming in here with the Sony camera. A lot of mirrorless cameras have this feature. You can sort of do a digital zoom of the screen, so you can see in detail of what you're focusing, because this is just a manual focus lens, so I can't use autofocus at all. So I'm just slowly adjusting it and going back and forth, because even with the zoom in I'm still quite far from the thing, so you have to go back and forth a few times to see the good sharpness. And just as the sun's coming up, it isn't quite up yet, you're getting some really great orange and reds in the sky, and you can't see so much in this shot here, but there is some really great sort of low-lying clouds out to the ocean a little bit, so I'm catching some of them as well, and it's just giving it a lot of features to the scene. And the town itself is still quite dark, so there's still a few lights on here and there, which adds a little bit of interest as well. So you can see some lights popping up, and you can see the clouds in the distance there really add a little bit of sort of magic to the shot. You can see a few lines in the water there from a few boats, and the way the currents are going, it adds a bit of interest to the right side of the frame. Otherwise it'd be a little bit one-sided. So this next shot is quite close to where I was previously, but I'm facing towards the city this time. So I'm still up in the hills, I'm looking down towards the city, and where the city is, it's really flat, so there's just long plains, and there's some mountains in the distance, some snow-capped mountains. So I'm trying to compose a shot with the back of the camera here, and with the longer lenses you have to use them to explore with the back of the camera. I can't see with my naked eye really the scene itself as well as the camera can with the long lens, and with a more wide angle lens you can just look at it with your naked eye and you go, okay, yeah, I can sort of compose it this way or this way, and then you don't have to look at the back of the camera as much as you do with a longer lens. And with the longer lenses you have to sort of use your camera to sort of explore the area as well. So this is what I'm doing just now, just looking around trying to find some nice shots. I can see some smoke from a chimney, it's a factory or something like that, so that's what I'm trying to use a bit there to give sort of a bit of a focus into the scene, because it's quite flat, but there's some really nice light just catching the tips of some buildings and some trees, and then you have the snow-capped mountains in the back, and then I need something in the foreground that's a little bit of eye-catching, so that smoke in the front there adds a bit of interest there. This final shot here, I was out for a sunset. This is quite a simple scene, but there's some really interesting clouds and light happening on the horizon just as the sun's dipping down, because there's sort of a banner of clouds above the horizon line where you sort of get two layers before the sun's dropping. So you get a little bit of mountains in the distance, and you can see a few trees on the horizon as well. But the foreground is quite simple, it's just sand and ocean, and it's all quite flat, so you're getting some really cool reflections, but the clouds are adding most of the features of this image. And I'm doing a panoramic type shot here because it's quite zoomed in because of the 135mm, so I'm just trying to compose it so that I can stitch these together and get a more overall view of the scene. So you get some really nice light here. The sun is just sort of coming down towards the top half of the clouds here. It isn't at the horizon yet, and it's bouncing off the clouds that are at the horizon. So it's quite a unique and interesting lighting scenario. And you get a bit of a fog that's in the distance over the mountains and over the trees that are closer to the foreground. And in the foreground itself you just get it's a really plain foreground, but that's all you need for this kind of shot, because the light and the scenery in the distance really makes it a really powerful shot. Hope you liked this week's video guys, and I appreciate it if you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks!